Hello, Facebook. We're back.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Joanne and Marissa with Sit, Chat, and all that information for mature women. And we're so excited today because we have with us that Miss Sarah Harrison. She was with us on last week, and she's back with us again today. And so we're excited to have her. In addition, we have another guest with us, Dr. Velma Scantlebury. I knew I was going to mess up that name. I knew I was going to do it. But Sarah, as you all know, she was with us on last week, and we discussed the challenges as far as the discriminatory practices and all of the things that go along with us as a people not being able to get the resources and care that we often need when we're looking in the community for whether it's medical reasons or what have you. But she's back with us today to extend that conversation because today we'll be talking about COVID-19, the flu vaccine, that virus, and all the information connected to that. Now, I did mention on last week, Sarah has extensive experience in the pharmaceutical arena. In fact, she was a chief executive officer. Is that correct, Sarah?
Vice President, but thank you.
Vice President, okay. I just gave you a promotion. Yay! I hope you got some money with that promotion. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Sarah. Now, Marissa, you want to let the people know? Y'all see how she's looking again, y'all?
There Joanne goes.
What can I say? What can I say?
I can't dress up and go out the house. So listen, I look forward to my podcast so I can put on my clothes and my hats.
The lady in red. Okay, but she will be filling those questions as we move forward. So be sure, audience, if you have any questions, any concerns, and this is a particular topic that you really want to ask questions, because right now we're dealing with these numbers that are steadily going up. We have a vaccine that's out there and people are somewhat hesitant to take. So we're going to be talking about all those things tonight. If you have any questions, now is the time. Do not hold back. So, Ms. Sarah, we're going to turn it over to you and let you introduce our other guest speaker, Dr. Scantlebury. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Joanne and Marissa. I'm glad to be back again tonight. I hope everybody had a wonderful, beautiful, blessed Christmas with their family and looking forward to a happy new year. Tonight, I am so excited about having Dr. Velma Scantlebury White. And she doesn't have this in her bio, but she so graciously has been working with me on the project that I currently have that I shared a little bit with you last week called Star 65 Plus, which is a lifestyle interventions program for 65 and over, to help us to live a much healthier life and a longer life. But she serves as my medical consultant and does a lot of health education to reach people. But she hails from the Barbados. I was about to say Bahamas. From Barbados, where she grew up from a little girl, and she loves her country. She is also, or most recently, was the Associate Director of the Kidney Transplant Program at Christiana Care Hospital right here in Delaware. They have been so fortunate to have her. She is the very first African-American female transplant surgeon in the United States of America.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes.
And she deserves every bit of the applause. She has worked hard from the time she finished college or even early on in her residency and worked to get beyond what she calls another wall here in the United States. In addition to being a transplant surgeon, where she has done organs like the liver and many others, but decided to specialize in kidney. She accepted her position at Christiana Care after working at the University of South Alabama's Regional Transplant Center. So she went all the way down south, where she served also as a professor of surgery, assistant dean of community education, and the director of transplantation. She has been named to both the best doctors in America and top doctor in America. And she's been named that multiple times. She earned her medical degree from Columbia University in New York City. She was an intern and resident in general surgery at Harlem Hospital Center in New York City. Many wonderful physicians went through Harlem Hospital System. She completed her fellowship training in transplantation surgery at the University of Pittsburgh. And then she joined the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine as, once again, an assistant professor of surgery. And of course, she just rose through the ranks. Her special interests include researching the end results of donation and transplantation. And she continues this as a huge effort. She believes that education is key. And for us as Black Americans, it's really key for us to educate each other about organ donation and especially living donors. And I applaud her for continuing to try to get all of us to see the importance of that. So she continues that education and raising awareness and increasing the incidence of living donor transplantation through education. She is also very big and very much an advocate for closing the health equity gap or health inequity gap. And I am very excited about that. You heard me talk about that last week.
Yes.
In addition to all of the other honors, she was also honored and recognized by the Queen of England.
Wow.
So how about that?
Yes, amazing.
She is also an author and has authored her first book, but that wasn't the first time she authored things. She's authored many, many, many medical articles also. I love that book. It tells how the name of it is Beyond the Wall.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond
So
the wall.
please purchase.
Beyond every wall. Beyond
yes,
every
sorry.
wall.
Beyond every wall.
Every wall,
Beyond every
not
wall.
just
Beyond
one
every
wall.
wall. Yes.
I like
Beyond
that. Beyond
every
every
wall.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
she tells how that wall in Barbados helped her to build the strength that she currently has to go on and tear down every wall. She's done over 2,000. I like to tell this, even though she doesn't like me to tell it.
I'm going to cut you off, Sarah. Can you mute her?
Over 2,000 transplants that she's performed.
Do we need
So
to hear that part, doctor?
We welcome her. I love her, and I just love the idea that she's so caring and willing to outreach. So she'll be on in just a minute or two. Tonight, we're going to share with you a bit about COVID. You know, we all know this demon.
Mm-hmm.
We all have lived with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're beginning to become comfortable with it. I know I'm not comfortable with it yet.
I am not comfortable.
I'm not comfortable with it either.
But you know, and Christmas made me really know I wasn't comfortable with it. I'm doing everything Dr. Fauci says we should do. And I'm telling you, I was not happy on Christmas Day when I had to send all the food I cooked to my son's house because I told them they couldn't come to my house.
I know.
But it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
Is.
And I just hate the fact that the numbers around the world just keep increasing. You know, I knew not to use the numbers from yesterday. And right before I got on the the meeting here, I looked up the numbers to see what they were. It said 80.9 million. I looked up again less than a minute after I wrote it down, and the thing changed because I had gone to a site that give you current updated information, and it changed. Then I said, let me go see what CNN is saying. So I ran upstairs to the television because my husband he did not allow me to change the football game.
We know that.
And the number was different. I said, oh no, this is ridiculous. But we all know that for some reason, the United States that only represents 5%, maybe even a little less, of the world's population is standing up with almost 20% of the COVID cases. The deaths are going up steadily, 333,000. Every day they're going up, and it's just difficult. It's awful. But we keep going on. We keep trying to do what we're supposed to do. We all continue to practice all the recommendations, at least most of us, because if everybody was practicing it, the numbers would not be going up as fast.
Absolutely.
We wear our mask.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like I need to cook in it.
Or you forget you have it on in the house.
Yes, and I had it on in the house cooking, and I tasted. I said, "Oh!" I just put the food all on the mask.
I did that one time, Sarah. I went to drink some water. I had my mask on. I'm like,
yeah. So we know what to do. So continue to wear the mask. Continue to try to be at least 6 feet or more apart.
yes.
Cover your mouth when you sneeze. If you use a tissue, throw it away. Don't touch your face. Keep spraying and cleaning and disinfecting, and we'll be all right. Yes. We pray for the frontline healthcare providers and all the essential personnel. We pray for all the families who have lost a loved one. We pray for all of those who suffered through COVID. Thank God, though, that you're still with us. So please, please continue to practice. We now have 2 vaccines on the market. Dr. Scantlebury White will share with you updated information. She has been a part of the task forces around the country. We have Black people who are standing up. These are researchers. These are physicians. These are scientists. They have been looking at both of the drugs, talking to both of the companies. We know that we have our own issues with vaccines and any other medication. But please hear what she's saying. Please know that these drugs are safe and effective. And please get in line when it's your turn. Okay? So now Dr. Scantlebury White will share a bit with you about the importance of the flu and then more information on the COVID vaccines. Dr. Scantlebury White.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sarah. We know that we are now in the end of December, and I hope everyone has had their flu shot. If you haven't had your flu shot, I beg you to get it, because unfortunately, you don't want to get exposed to the flu as well as the coronavirus at the same time. Both of these are deadly. You don't want, as we get older, our immune systems are not as potent as they used to be. So get the flu vaccine. Get the flu vaccine and stay away. Continue to practice all the current recommendations. Wash your hands. Wear a face mask. Practice safe distancing. Cover your nose and your mouth when you have to cough or sneeze, and throw that tissue away when you do. And stay home if you don't have to go out, because it's important, because unfortunately, The flu and the COVID have similar symptoms. When you show up or very ill, you want to make sure your doctor is going to be confused as to whether you have the flu or whether you have the coronavirus, the COVID-19. Fever, dry cough, muscle aches, fatigue, less so in terms of headache and coughing up blood is usually part of sometimes with the flu, but coronavirus also have that loss of taste and smell because it affects our nerves at the base of our brain. And so, yes, it travels through our body. It causes pneumonia. It causes liver disease, liver damage. It can affect your kidneys. It can cause blood clots. So we want to make sure that you are protected from the flu because you do not want to show up in emergency room having to be tested for coronavirus or even admitted for coronavirus, because then if you don't have it, you may be even more exposed to it because they're not sure whether you have the flu or whether you have coronavirus. As Sarah said, at the beginning of December, there were about 14 million global cases, and now we're just plummeting. We're just continue to rise. And in the month of December, we have approximately about 3,000 people dying every day. That is so much more than what occurred in March and April and May. Those numbers are worse now than they were in the beginning. And it's incredible because we're not taking those precautions that we need to be. And unfortunately, here in the United States, we continue to exceed all other nations from that standpoint. So we want to make sure that the death toll, which is now at 333,000 people dead in the United States. It requires, because this is such a deadly pandemic, stopping the pandemic requires all the tools that we have, not only just wearing masks and social distancing, but we need these vaccines because the vaccine works with your own immune system to help your body fight off the virus if you are exposed to it. It doesn't keep you from getting COVID, but what it does is equip you with the antibodies and the fighters, the policemen that are needed within your body so that when you are exposed to the virus, you are able to fight it off. You can have less of a deadly attack, less likely to die, symptoms that are not going to be as severe because you already have that immune system vamped up through the vaccine. And we know that the vaccine was, for many, this warp speed was creates a distrust. It makes us uncomfortable. What's warp speed? It makes us feel like they hurried up and got it done, but that's not so. None of the steps in getting to this vaccine were compromised. You have to remember that clinical trials for anything, including this COVID vaccine, must show that they're safe and effective before the vaccine can be authorized for emergency use, which is currently what's being done, are approved in general. And we know that because we have so many people who have died or gotten sick from the coronavirus, people were available to enter the trials. And secondly, money was put into both companies to be able to execute phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials. And without that large money, $95 million that was put forth by the US government, you need money to do trials. You need money to be able to recruit people, to pay them, to have them come back, to test them. And so getting these trials on board occurred in a quick manner, but we also have to remember that the mRNA technology that's the basis for both Pfizer and Moderna was already available and had been developed many years before, but just not recognized. And actually, Moderna as a company had actually hired the young lady from Philadelphia who was instrumental from University of Penn in terms of developing and really doing the research behind mRNA. And so the technology was there. They were able to quickly recognize that this was the way to go to produce this vaccine. And I must say, it does not contain the coronavirus. It will not give you the coronavirus. So many people feel, if I take this vaccine, am I going to get sick from the virus? No, it's not a live virus and it's not a dead virus. It's the mRNA, the genetic material from the spike proteins of the coronavirus were taken. The genetic material was put into encoded in what we call nanolipids, and that is then passed from the vaccine to your body into your cells, that sends that genetic, all it is delivering genetic material to your cell that says, here, make proteins against this spike protein of coronavirus. And that's what it did. And we had effective trials. We know that both Moderna and Pfizer recruited over 75,000 people together in phase 3 trials to test it. So they looked for serious side effects. They looked to make sure it was safe. They looked to make sure that it was efficacious, that it was proven to have positive effect. And what they did was that they were able to show that those people who got the vaccine versus those who got placebo or saline were able to develop antibodies and fight off the virus. So that's what's being effective. And so once, you have to remember the flu vaccine has about 40 to 50% efficacy. And we still need to take it. And we still take it because you don't want to get sick. And we advise people. Now, this vaccine has 94 or 95% efficacy, meaning it's effective when 95 people out of 100 people were able to develop an immune system to help fight this virus. So you're not getting the virus from the vaccine. And it's important to realize that these vaccines have been proven. Yes, there are people who got some side effects. I got my vaccine about a week ago. Had some pain and some discomfort in the shoulder where I received the vaccine, and that discomfort was much less than the discomfort I experienced after the flu vaccine. I had no fevers, no real significant muscle aches and pains, and so I did well. Most people do well. There are a few people who have an allergic reaction. And so they warn people that if you've ever had a reaction against another vaccine, another flu vaccine, or hepatitis B vaccine, that you need to speak with your doctor, and a reaction that requires you to be in the hospital. We don't want you having an anaphylactic reaction. And for all people receiving the vaccines, you must realize that you will get that vaccine under monitored conditions where they will allow you have to be present and stay for 15 to 30 minutes after the vaccine to be monitored to make sure you're not going to have any side effects. So it's not like you can walk into your drugstore and get your vaccine and walk out. You have to be monitored. You're given a card that says this is you've received the vaccine, which company you received the vaccine from, and it requires a second dose. Both of them require a second dose within 3 to 4 weeks later. And so once you receive the vaccine, as I did, every day you have to sign on to this Be Safe website, and they text you every day to get an update to see how you're feeling. Do you have any fevers? Do you have anything going on? And so it's important that you are followed, because this is still emergency use authorization. It means the FDA has granted them emergency use because so many people are dying. And we know that all participants will be followed for at least 2 years. Pfizer authorized their vaccine for 16 years and over, and Moderna vaccine is approved for age 18 and over. It was not tested on pediatric patients. And so you cannot approve a vaccine until it has been tested and shown to be efficacious or have a positive effect, and it's safe for kids and at what dose. So that's important. People say, why can't my kids get it? Well, we want to make sure that the correct dose is needed. You may not be giving a child the same dose as you're giving an adult. All those things need to be ironed out. Yes,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a couple questions. I don't want to miss them on the chat because they start rolling up. So if you don't mind, I just have to jump in for a second. One person wanted to know that what if they never had the flu shot, so they wouldn't know if they would have a reaction or not to a vaccine. So would that be okay for them to still get the COVID even though they've never had the flu shot? Would there be a difference?
Well, I'm sure they've had other shots, hepatitis B. They might have had diphtheria, tetanus, all those other injections. People feel that if you have an allergy to like a medication or food, that doesn't really matter. For some people, if they've had an allergic reaction before, it's the ingredients that go into the bottle that you may want to look at what are the other components in the vaccine to make sure you don't have a previous allergy to the same thing. So you just want to make sure you discuss it with your doctor so that they're aware that you might have had a previous anaphylactic reaction, which means you actually had your throat closing off, you had to be rushed to the hospital, they had to give you some, you couldn't breathe properly, you broke out in hives, but most importantly that you couldn't breathe. Those are things that are important to know.
Right. And I have another question. Also, someone is asking if you've had COVID-19 already, do you still need to have the vaccine?
Yeah, if you've had COVID, most people may develop an immunity, meaning they develop the body's ability to fight off and stay be able to for about 90 days. So after 3 months, we don't know if those antibodies that you've formed from having COVID goes away or not. So they suggest that if you've had COVID within the past 90 days, you could wait. But if you're called for the vaccine, we don't know how strong that immunity is. We don't know. There are people who get the COVID infection and don't make antibodies. So that means they don't have the immunity. They did not develop the immunity. And since we don't check people on a regular basis, it's better to not get passed over, especially if you're elderly, you have other health problems, that becomes important for you to even have a stronger response. Your own immunity that you develop from having had COVID before can be there, or it can vary from 10% to 80%. But we know the vaccine is guaranteed immunity. From it, 95% guaranteed immunity. COVID itself may be 10%, 20%, we don't know. It may be 100%, but we haven't looked at all participants. What they're now asking is people who have had COVID in the past to come forward and give blood to see if you have antibodies in it. And if you do, you become effective, but we don't know how long those antibodies last. We don't know how long the COVID vaccine would last. We don't know whether we'll need to get it booster every year or not. Those are things that once you get the vaccine, you will still be part of an ongoing monitored study.
Doctor, one of the things I know I've heard many people, as a matter of fact, so they're resistant to or don't want to get the flu vaccine because they took the flu vaccine once and they got very ill, or they took it more than once, and each time they received the flu vaccine, they became ill, and then they're convinced the flu vaccine gave them the flu, so they don't want to take it. So can you speak to that? Because those two issues sort of merge, people's hesitancy as far as taking the vaccine.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, every season the flu is different, and so yes. What happens is that there are many different strains of the flu, and so is what they generally look at is what's the most common flu infections that are around, and so the vaccine is made up of different kinds of flu virus based on what they think are most commonly going to cause the flu. So what may have caused the flu last year may not be the ones that caused the flu this year. So the flu vaccine is actually made up of usually 4 different types of flu vaccines for people over age 65, and they're high dose. Some people will say, hey, I was allergic to eggs, so I can't take the flu vaccine. That may not necessarily be true because now they have egg-free types. And so last year's flu, you may still get the flu because we know the flu vaccine is only about 50 to 60% effective, or 40 to 60%, but it does build immunity to those viruses that are the dead virus that are part of the flu vaccine. You may still get infected with the flu after having the flu vaccine, but it may not be intense, or you could just get a totally different virus. So what you want to do, unfortunately, as we get older, we cannot fight off viruses or infections as well. And so it's important for the older community over 65. I think the high dose vaccine is usually for people over 60 plus, because they want you to build a stronger immune system, more antibodies, and you have to realize that the flu, basically, the majority of the flu is a kill virus. and your body reacts to that part of the virus to cause you to develop antibodies against the flu. The nasal spray is a live vaccine. And so we tell people who are immunosuppressed not to take that, because it may not be as effective, and you may also damage your immune system. So make sure you talk to your doctor. It's important as we get older, because the flu kills. Over as many people, I think if you think about last year, the 2019 to 2020 season, there were over 400,000 hospitalizations for the flu across the United States. That's the whole population of Miami, Florida. There were 22,000 people died last year from the flu, 22,000, and 38 million flu infections every year. And so, yes, while it's not as deadly as the coronavirus, there are still thousands of people who get hospitalized for the flu and its consequences. So it's not to be taken lightly at all, especially as you get older.
Okay.
Dr. Scantlebury,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. As we all know, Black Americans especially many of them still remember Tuskegee. Do you think that we have done enough education right now to get past that and to keep them from being resistant because of what happened in Tuskegee?
I think we, as people of color, have to validate the fact that, yes, we do have concerns. And those fears were real. There's that distrust because we have seen it. And we know that in the time in Tuskegee, whether it's Henrietta Lacks cells, there was no transparency, there was no representation, and we are now in a better position. We have people of color on the front lines involved in the vaccine process. The NIH, Dr. Corbett, one of the head scientists involved in the vaccine rollout. And it's important to acknowledge that, yes, there is that element of trust, and we're not denying that. We just want to make sure that the vaccine process is equitable, is safe, and the distribution, and that there's transparency each and every step along the way. A lot of the task force have involved significant people of color, from whether it's Morehouse or Meharry University, presidents, CEOs involved in the task force, in the enrollment of African Americans in the study. And it's important to realize that distrust have kept us as people of color from enrolling in clinical trials. And one of the problems we have is people ask, why isn't there better? I'm not taking this vaccine because there were no people of color in the studies. Well, it's hard to get that enrollment. And so Pfizer actually, in the initial phase of their phase 3 studies, it was recognized that they had less than 3% in the phase 1 studies. And so they actually had to halt to say, we need to, it was recognized. And so it was brought to their attention that they need more people of color. And they enrolled 30,000 people and an addition of 14,000 people of color after disparities were brought to the attention of the Pfizer vaccine company. Moderna also went out of their way to involve enrollment of people of color involving the Baltimore, DC area residents, and to make sure that there was adequate, well, at least greater than nearly 4% representation in the phase 3 studies, and higher that in terms of local enrollment. So there was a lot of effort made to get people of color to enroll. And that was important because we do not enroll in studies. We have that history of not wanting to be a guinea pig, not wanting to be tested on. When we ask questions of why they didn't do this, then you need to say, why didn't I step up? Or who do you know stepped up to do it? So there's that element of distrust, but we now know that they made a good effort to enroll people of color. We know that there are people of color at the table. There are people of color along each step of the way in terms of making sure that this is safe, this is effective, and what is the downside? You have to weigh your risk and benefits of your risk of the vaccine versus your risk of getting COVID and your risk of death from getting COVID. Sure, if you're at home, isolated, not exposed, and you're saying, I don't need this vaccine right now, and I want to see what happens down the line. If you're not elderly, a frontline worker, healthcare worker who needs this vaccine and is exposed every day, then perhaps you can wait your turn. But you do not want to be passed over because this vaccine is in short supply. And there are over 33 million people, 300 million people. There is certainly only 20 million vaccines rolled out so far. So we want to make sure that you do not get passed over when it's your turn.
That's right. We definitely don't want to get passed over. And we are in the headlines, mainly because we were such a large percentage of the number of cases of COVID.
Right.
And of the number of cases of COVID deaths.
Right.
Back to the old disparities again.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they're not making a special position in line for Blacks, but they are making a special position in line for the vaccine for 65 and over.
Yes,
So
especially those with health problems.
Yes.
If you have severe health problems, you will be given priority to get the vaccine. And that's important because the higher percentage of those dying from COVID are those with significant other health problems, whether it's lung disease, whether it's obesity, hypertension, diabetes. Those are just being Black increases your risk of potential death from COVID disease. So that's important to weigh your risk and benefits. When you think about, I'm not getting this, what is your risk of dying if you get the COVID virus, if you get COVID-19? That's the question you need to ask yourself.
Absolutely.
Scantlebury, you get many thank yous, and people are really enjoying this information. I have one person in the audience want to know, what are your thoughts on the new strand that's developing in the UK? She's also saying that it's hard to imagine that strand has not reached the US, but I will say that I actually heard that strand had reached the United States. So I'm not sure how positive that is, but I did hear that it had. So you have any thoughts on the new strand?
Thank you.
Yes, really. It's I do not know, only as much as that's out there. Unfortunately, when the coronavirus gets transmitted from human to an animal, and then from that animal back to human, it's going to change its genetic makeup. And that's when it becomes a different virus, in a different form of the virus. We don't know if the spike proteins are any different, because the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine genetic material is only for the spike proteins on the virus itself, as it doesn't involve the DNA of the vaccine molecule itself, of the coronavirus itself, just the spike proteins. And so if the spike proteins are the same, we're hoping that the vaccines will still be effective. But until those patients who have the mutant virus are tested, examined, and to see how different and whether it responds to the vaccine, we really wouldn't know. So other countries have closed their border to people coming from the United Kingdom. United States did not. So I'm sure, as the mayor of New York City said last week, right now there are hundreds of people pouring into JF Kennedy Airport coming from England. So yes, I'm sure that there are some of those may or may not be affected.
Yeah, can't help but be here if there's no restrictions. Yeah.
Yep.
We have another question from they were asking, how long is the immunity for each vaccine? I don't know what they mean, the flu vaccine as well as the COVID, but how long is the immunity once you receive? Let's just speak to COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, for the flu vaccine, we want you to get it before December, usually November, late October, so that you're protected during the flu season, which is usually until February, March. And after that, you're relatively safe. For some people who get it early, usually we say you may need to get another flu vaccine later on. But for the COVID, there's not enough information to know how long your immunity will last, which is why you will be followed after your vaccine to make sure that you, and at some point along the way, whether it's at 3 months or 6 months, you will get some blood work to see if your immunity is still there. And so a part of the goal of rolling out the vaccine is to also, you're still in the testing, the phase 3 trial is just emergency use. And so you will still be monitored and tested to see how long that immunity lasts.
Okay, okay.
But you have to remember that the trials were only for 2 months in terms of the phase 3 trial. So we don't have long-term data on any of these vaccines. But if you think about the fact that 33 or 35 to 40,000 people died between the middle of November and now, yes, this vaccine needs to roll out, because the longer we wait to see what the long-term effects are, we could have another 1 million people died from the coronavirus.
Yes, and also Dr. Scantlebury mentioned about if you give up your place in line and decide to wait and wait and wait, don't forget about the fact that capacity could really be strained. I was an executive in the pharmaceutical industry and had anti-infectives, that whole therapeutic area, which includes the antiviral, which these vaccines are, as well as the antibiotics and antifungals. And those products are very, very hard to make and to even discover. Luckily for us, the basic technology for these vaccines had already been discovered and had already been proven in the early stages. However, the United States made a recent decision to purchase, I think, another 100 million doses, which is a wonderful thing, because you know your president decided back, I think a couple of months ago, not to purchase the extra.
In June, in June.
And Pfizer decided to go on and sell it to the highest bidder, you know, the European countries. But there are questions around what's the difference between the two vaccines. And the second part of that is, do you have any recommendation on which one to take, either Pfizer's or Moderna?
Both vaccines are made using the same technology. The physician researcher who worked on this mRNA technology for 40 years, initially after leaving University of Penn, had worked with Moderna, who actually his company was formed after this. They came across her research and decided that it was worth investigating. Not only did she work with Moderna, she worked with Biotech, the German company that Pfizer partnered with. And so both Pfizer and Moderna have the same technology in terms of the way the vaccine is made, how it's delivered, and they're very similar in terms of so both of them are effective. The ingredients in one versus another, in terms of when you look at what's in the bottle itself, maybe a little different, which goes along with why Pfizer requires minus 94 degrees temperature freezer, because it has to be frozen to stay effective. So it has to be on dry ice. And then once it's thawed, so it doesn't, it made the preservative ingredients may be different than Moderna, which Moderna's vaccine can be frozen at normal refrigerator freezer temperatures, which is minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the Moderna is thawed, it can be in the refrigerator for 30 days. So it's much more user friendly when you're looking at communities that that don't have the high-tech refrigerator use. Pfizer is more restricted because once it's thawed, it is only viable in the refrigerator for 5 days. So those facilities that can accommodate Pfizer in terms of having the correct -94-degree freezers will be more likely use Pfizer, and those who don't, such as your community centers, your doctor's offices, will more likely be using Moderna.
Okay, so a follow-on question to that, and it may be a concern to some people. In the past, I'm not saying it happens today, but there has been evidence that different types of foods and different types of products have been sent to the Black community after they have expired. Now, is there any reason for us to even wonder as to whether or not a Pfizer vaccine that's older than 5 days will possibly be sent to communities of color?
Well, and unfortunately, it can only be sent in the frozen state. So any place accepting that Pfizer vaccine should not accept it unless it's still frozen. And if it's thawed out, they better find a lot of people to give those vaccines to in 5 days. If it's somehow, and that's the importance of shipping on dry ice, because it's dependable, and you need that refrigerator system to accommodate it. So unless, I guess the government is paying for these large refrigerators. So but the question is, where do you put them as far as community centers or health centers, the places that will be supposedly giving out the vaccines? Where the vaccines are distributed, you have to have a monitoring facility. There has to be a room for people to get the vaccine, and then another room for them to sit and wait and be monitored for 15 to 30 minutes afterwards. That's not going to happen in your local drugstores for quite a while, unless there is some other room that they develop within the Walgreens or the CVS. And so currently those pharmacies are partnering to deliver vaccines to long-term care facilities. They're not administering them in the pharmacies. They're just using, they're helping long-term care facilities to have it be distributed to them. And so the goal in the long run will usually, like we got our vaccines at the Department of Public Health, where their nurses, they had a whole floor set up for this. And you went into a standard patient room, got our vaccines, got to sign your information, whether it's Pfizer, to agree to take this vaccine, knowing that it's under emergency use. They explain the side effects. You're given the vaccine, and then you're asked to sit outside for 15 minutes. If you've had any history of allergies, you're usually monitored for 30 minutes. So that's currently the standard as it rolls out. So there are precautions, and the vaccine should not be accepted unless it's still in its frozen state.
Okay. I have another question.
Switch the line up. You have a question from the audience?
Yes, I do. I have another question from the audience. They're asking about the school system. So is the school system considered like part of the front line that we get the test earlier? Because there's a lot of daycare workers that are beginning to get the virus, and students as well.
Well, once the system rolls out in different phases, the frontline workers, healthcare workers, those that deliver first contact with patients, and then each state can regulate the order of who they think is important. Some states are including teachers in that phase 1C, because it's just the teachers, firemen, emergency care, EMTs, those because we feel that those are important people, but it varies from state to state. So how the rollout in terms of elderly healthcare workers in that order is based on your Department of Public Health, based in your own state, and how they decide to put that out.
So what we need to do is make sure we stay on top of that information, so that when it comes to the state of Texas may be different from the state of maybe Delaware and so forth and so on. Yeah. So we have to stay on top of it.
They can regulate it according to their need.
And especially if you're 65 plus years of age and older, you need to know what the plan of action is for your particular area.
Right.
That's right.
Speaking
And
of that,
one other question, I'm sorry. I think you may have mentioned earlier, but maybe the person wasn't online yet. How long between the two doses of COVID vaccine you get? What's the time in between the two?
For Pfizer, it's 21 days, and between the first vaccine and the second vaccine. And for Moderna, I think it's 28 days.
right.
Okay.
So 3 to 4 weeks between each one.
Okay, thank you.
And most people say, I haven't gotten my second dose yet, but the data shows that the response or the side effects with the second dose, because your body has been primed by the first dose, the second dose, really you have a stronger response. So you may have more discomfort. You know, sometimes people get the flu vaccine and for that one night afterwards, they're feeling miserable. That's your body reacting and building its immune system, heightened immune system, getting those, the vaccine is working generally. And so you may get fevers. And so that's generally a response to your body's building its immunity.
Okay, thank
In
you.
addition to that, speaking of Houston, Houston is a hot spot.
Yes.
Oh, yes, it is.
And we don't know what the increase is going to be 2 weeks from now, you know, because we haven't, they're still experiencing the Thanksgiving, you know, rise. Christmas is, they don't even know what's going to happen. And a lot of people traveled for Christmas.
Yeah.
But you should stay on top of it, Joanne, from usually the governor's office. Of course, your Department of Health and Social Services should have updates every day on the plans for rolling out those vaccines. Okay, one of the concerns I have, especially now since I've been involved with launching this particular program with 65 and over, we have learned that there are many 65 and over that do not have transportation and do not have facilities close by, especially the low income that live in public housing. They don't have a hospital close enough, you know, that where they could get there with no transportation. So, you know, my question to the state of Delaware is, what are your plans? You can't have a testing site if they can't get to it.
Yes.
Which is happening right now. The vaccine is a lot more difficult in terms of administration than giving a COVID test. So
yes, and it's also important to realize that your follow-up is based on having a cell phone. You have to sign up via either a cell phone or a smart device so that they could send you information and you can respond to their questionnaire on a daily basis. So even if you have, there are some at-home COVID test kits that are now made available to many residents, and you still also need some kind of smart device in order to have that at-home COVID test.
yes, and while I was able to get a large number of those at-home COVID tests with intentions of giving them to the participants in my Star 65 Plus program, they don't all have those devices.
Right, exactly. They don't have a smartphone. They have a phone, but not necessarily a smartphone. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have given them tablets.
Right.
So now we just hope that they can do what they need to do on the tablet. Okay, so, but the vaccine, they need that vaccine, you know, so whatever they do to address the issue of 65 and over who do not have transportation is going to be key.
Well, listen, ladies, it's coming up on 7:30. This has truly been an informative evening. Yes. And we've gotten a lot of positive comments from the audience. And I'm sure that even after we finish the broadcast tonight, other people will be signing on to view the information if for any reason that they've missed it. So I want to thank you, Sarah, again for being with us. You gave an incredible broadcast or information on last week, provided information on last week. And this week is absolutely no different, Dr. Scantlebury. We are so excited and proud to have you with us this evening. You've given us some incredible information. So many of our people are still dealing with this disease at an incredible rate. In fact, I have a cousin right now we're praying for who has been hospitalized and is dealing with COVID. He's over 65 with some underlying health issues. So this is real, people. This is real. And unfortunately, but people think that it won't happen to me. It only happens in somebody else's backyard. But not only would it happen in your backyard, it'll be in your living room before you know it. So you definitely need to take heed, do what you need to do as far as doing those other protective steps like wearing your mask, keeping a safe distance apart, washing your hands, all the things that we've been hearing about for the last, 9 months has it been now, or 10 months? It's been a long time. I know everybody's COVID tired, but COVID is not tired of us.
That's true. That's true.
So just remember that. We may be COVID tired, but COVID is not tired of us. So we have to, we have to try to do everything we can to keep him wherever he needs to be, but just not in our neighborhood and not in our living rooms and not in our families and so forth and so on.
And
I want to thank each of you. And would you have any
add
closing
something?
remarks? Yeah, closing remarks.
Yes, I just want to add that unfortunately, getting COVID or even being hospitalized, you're all alone in the hospital. And for older people, it's very devastating. No one can visit you, and no one can advocate for you. And I think as people of color, we want to make sure that you're not mistreated, that you're getting appropriate treatment. Use your cell phone. Then request that the doctors talk with your loved one, communicate with your loved ones when the nurses are around and when the doctors are around it, so that others can hear that conversation and know what's going on with you. So that sometimes somebody else on the phone can ask the right questions. Because if you're with COVID, you are probably you're admitted, you probably have trouble breathing. You're probably not getting enough oxygen. You're probably not thinking straight. So asking the right questions and making sure you're getting the right treatment, it may not be top on your mind, and you may not even remember what to ask. So have your loved one on the phone when the doctors are in the room, when they come to see you, so that they can hear what's going on with you.
That's
Very
right.
good idea. I want to make note in the comments regarding your book. Your book again was called Beyond Every Wall.
Beyond Every Wall, Becoming the First
Velma.
Black Female Transplant Surgeon. It's actually on the website, www.beyondeverywall.com.
Okay, Sarah, you have any closing remarks before we go?
Yes, I do. I just really want to encourage everyone, when it's your turn, take the vaccine.
Yes.
It's important. We've suffered enough. There are lots of people on the front line fighting for us, standing up for us, making sure that there's equitable distribution. Okay? So let's take it. And Joanne, I'd just like to play this video that a producer produced on COVID and the vaccine, if you don't mind.
Well, absolutely.
Making me the co-host real quickly.
Sure.
And I hope I could get it up to play.
Hold on.
And good night to everyone. Thank you again, Dr. Scantlebury, for your wonderful, wonderful presentation. And he learns more and more every day about this. I depend heavily on what she's learning, because I know she has the voice of the Black people.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, we're very grateful. Okay, Sarah, I've made you can show the video now. And again, once the video ends, everybody will be actually signing off. So God bless you. Have a happy and prosperous new year, because this will be our last broadcast for 2020. And be safe, be blessed, be prosperous, and be back. Okay. And I want to see you next year.
Give a holler out to all of my Houston friends. I lived there for 13 years, had my 3 boys there at the Women's Hospital. So I'm glad that some of you were able to tune in. and also to my family that may be on.
Yeah, you have a few people. You have a few people that are saying great job, Sarah. So I said Karen Wesley and someone else. So you do have a few people that are commenting. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Very good information.
Okay, wonderful. I'm just trying to build you guys' audience around the nation.
That's beautiful.
Okay,
That's beautiful.
here goes.
All righty.
All right, everybody, listen to this.
Seems like forever. With the right vaccine, we can change the scene. There's a certainty, somehow we stay sure, but we need something secure. And with the right vaccine, we can change the scene. To slow the global virus, we need a global team. Use the STEP acronym to find the right vaccine. A success rate that could put an end to this, but safe enough to not put people at risk.
We can do this. Be open to the possibilities. A shot for eradication of this disease. Step to it, let's do it. Trust science and facts. To recognize above all, God got our backs. Face fear, find courage, don't blow it, y'all. Stick to the protocol, always sure to fall. Stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, wear a mask. STEP, that's all we ask. Come on.
We can cure, we're all in this together, though the wait seems like forever. With the right vaccine, we can change the scene. There's a certainty, somehow we stay sure, but we need something secure. And with the right vaccine, we can change the scene.
Yeah, so always remember the protocols. Wash your hands, wear a mask, and stay 6 feet apart. Together, we can make a difference.
This is compliments of KC Entertainment out of Los Angeles, California.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
That
you,
was
Sarah.
wonderful.
That was
Thank
great,
you so
Sarah.
much.
That was
That was great. That was a great way to end the evening.
Yes,
Thank you.
happy
Good night,
New Year,
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
everyone.
Sarah, you sign us out.
Be safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year,
Happy New
everybody.
Year. Say, Sarah,
Yes.
you have to go ahead and sign out of Facebook. We're still live, you and I.
Oh, okay. All right. So I just go to end, right?
I just go ahead and end.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
See you
Take
soon.
care.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, you will.